that when he gets on an airplane and he sees a black pilot, folks, he says he sees a black pilot, he's worried about whether the pilot is actually qualified. Now, this comes after Charlie Kirk questioned the worth of Martin Luther King Day. Let's take a listen to it and then let's discuss.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate. No, you wouldn't have done that before. That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality.
It actually sounds like it is. This is the movement that he has inspired. Now, I've heard similar stuff about female pilots, and often it starts with, I'm sorry, but. When you hear I'm sorry, but.
I knew they were going to fall for that one. Yeah. Is Charlie Kirk actually racist? I don't know. I don't know the guy. I don't know what his thoughts are. Is what Charlie Kirk said racist? Absolutely not. There's nothing about what he said that's racist. If you're liberal, left-wing, anything like that, you are going to have a knee-jerk reaction and automatically, oh my goodness, like he said, he's saying that black pilots aren't qualified. He's a black pilot, and, how could a black pilot possibly be qualified? Now, Charlie Kirk could be racist. He could actually think those types of things. But that's not what he said, right? And the lack of critical thinking in this country, as demonstrated by Mr. David Pakman, who made a video, who wrote a book about how to think critically for kids. Kid you not, he actually did that. Either he lacked critical thinking to understand what Charlie Kirk was actually saying, or he's being disingenuous. Could be either. So that's lack of critical thinking, and also being sort of in your echo chamber, your tribe. This is a guy who is part of a group of people who you have a lot of ideas that, they're racist, they're white supremacists, you hear it in your media all the time. So that idea is strong in your mind. And then he says something that's even remotely, sounding like it might be something, you're like, see, right? Confirmation bias. You're seeing exactly what you want to see, right? You want proof that this guy's racist because you think he's racist. So he says something like this and you're like, boom, got him. But look at how someone who is not captured by ideology, someone who thinks critically, how I interpret what he said. So before I say that, let me let you people know what I think about Charlie Kirk. Trash. And I don't know that there's many right-wing influencers that are not trash. And that's nothing about the right wing, nothing about conservatives, right? I have no issue with the ideology of conservatism. I disagree with it generally, but I don't have an issue with the ideology. I have a strong issue with the conservative movement. The movement and the ideology are not the same. You have a bunch of people who claim to be conservatives, but the stuff they're doing is they're just following these influencers like Charlie Kirk, right? So that being said, I think he's a trash guy, and I don't have a lot of respect for him at all. He's also very smart, very intelligent, and he's kind of a little bit bipolar. He's kind of like dual personalities. If you watch him do a debate, wow, the knowledge that he has about history and a lot of things, and the intelligence and how articulate he is, yeah, wow. And then you see him on his podcast. Holy crap, what a wacko. So that's my thoughts on it, right? And that's just to let you know further the thought process that disconnects your feelings. Don't like the guy, think he's a trash person, right? Don't disagree with his ideology, right? But when I listen to his words, I'm listening to his words, right? And I listen to what he actually said and understand what he's actually saying, and therefore come to a different conclusion than people who they're seeing the world through colored lenses, right? So this is what he's saying. This is their latest thing. It's like CRT, woke, whatever. They always, these influencers, they always need some kind of catnip to make money from, right? Some kind of a scary thing. Oh my goodness, socialism, whatever it is, right? Riles up their audience. And politicians, they're riling up their base, and this is what gets them clicks and views and money and power. So Charlie Kirk trying to buy another BMW. I don't know if he has a BMW, but he's trying to make his money, right? So DEI is one of the latest little catnip that they're using right now. So everything is like, oh, that's DEI, right? So what is he saying? He's talking about the fact that in his view, right, you have this desire, I think he would call it reverse racism. Like, I'm just steel manning his arguments. I understand their arguments, right, for the most part. So, you have this reverse racism, right, designed as a response to racism. So you're fighting racism with racism. That's the way Charlie Kirk would see things, right? So in this reverse racism, you have a more qualified white pilot who doesn't get a job because the DEI is seeking to make things equal, and we want to have a certain percentage of black people, right? So it's like, let's hire this black pilot who might not be as good as the white one, and that wouldn't be necessarily because of the skin color. It's just a matter of what they're talking about. They're talking about hiring people not for their skills but for their skin color. If you're hiring them for the skin color, not their skills, then you're necessarily going to end up with people who aren't fully qualified. And that is what he's talking about, right? See, that in itself is not racist, right? Right? If you believe that they're hiring people for skin color, right? And that's not something that you need racism to come up with. I mean, that there are these sort of quotas where companies we want to hire a certain percentage of minorities in our company. Like, that's a real thing, right? So that's a fact. And if you take that fact and then you stretch it to, okay, so since they have an incentive to hire people simply because they're minorities, then Charlie Kirk potentially extrapolates from that means they're going to potentially hire people not for their skills. And if you're hiring a pilot not for their skills, then that means you could easily hire a pilot that's not really fully qualified. So what he's saying is, he gets on a plane, he sees a brown-skinned pilot, and he has to wonder whether they're qualified. Not because he doesn't think black pilots can fly planes, but because in his view, the hiring process has been poisoned by this incentive to, let's get more incentives. Get more minorities. And again, in that system, he believes or pretends to believe that, they would hire people who are not qualified just because their focus is not on skill, it's on skin color. So therefore, it's possible that this pilot might not be qualified. Not because of his skin color, in terms of how Charlie Kirk views his skin color, but Charlie Kirk is speaking to how the employers see skin color in their hiring decisions, right? He's speaking to them looking at someone who may not be fully qualified, but he has the right skin color, so let's hire him. That is what he's talking about, right? Of course, in my view, that's ridiculous, but that's what he's talking about. But watch, I don't think there's any left-wing media channel that will ever point that out. They will all just say, oh, got him, he's saying a quiet part out loud. He actually admitted, he thinks that black pilots can't fly. When you do this kind of low IQ, sort of thought process, you're given a layup to a little sort of right-wing apologist, right? Smarty pants right-wing apologist who likes to say, well, actually, Tim Pool never said, right? You're giving him a layup, man. You give them a layup. They believe that every time you talk about racism, it's nonsense. They believe racism is not that big of a deal. We've solved racism, right? And here you are saying Charlie Kirk is racist when he didn't actually say something racist, right? They probably would understand what Charlie Kirk was actually saying, and they would very smugly point it out to you and say, see, yet again, every time you guys say racism, it's fake. This is what happens when you are so tribal and you lack critical thinking. Right? Partisan media. It's not about mainstream media. Mainstream media got a lot of trash, but even more so is partisan independent media, right? Because the problem is not whether it's mainstream media or independent. It's about the incentives, right? Both forms of media are incentivized to tell their audience what they want to hear, right? And it's very profitable to talk about racism, some right-wing influencers, racist. That is catnip for your audience, right? So that's the issue, right? It's not mainstream versus independent, right? It is that for-profit media, which is incentivized to be dishonest for profit. This is the Baby Channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Is Charlie Kirk racist? I don't know. Don't know the guy. Can't read his minds. But what he said in that video was not racist, right? All right, guys.